For my anniversary, my 365th lecture, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you my story. And I'm not just going to tell you my story, I'm going to tell you 5 stories, because I'm that kind of guy. More than you asked for. All right, so if you understand these 5 stories that I'm about to tell you, when I say 5 stories, I really mean 5 people, 5 important people. These 5 people are the story of me and why I am who I am. And also, more than that, they're also the story of where I'm going and what I'm going to do and how I've been following my life's passions. So the story starts with probably the most important place that it could start, and that's my father. My father was born in India, Rathnagiri, India. He lived in a hilltop village on a river. The village was on a river. The people who lived there were uneducated, poor. My father was the second person in the village to graduate from high school. The first person was his older brother. And my father was the first person to go to college. He said, he finished high school and he said, I want to go to college. The people in the village had no idea what to do about this because nobody had ever gone to college before. But they wanted him to follow his dreams, and so they arranged for him to have a place in Bombay, and he attended university in Bombay. And he got into a technical school. Technical schools were schools that fed you into a couple of different avenues. So you could end up in engineering, you could end up in medicine, you could end up in dentistry, you could end up in veterinary medicine. So all the people who had technical skill could go to the technical university and graduate into one of those fields. And while my dad was in university, he didn't really have too many people to hang out with, because he didn't really have too many role models, too much guidance, because nobody else had done what he was trying to do. And so he made a friend. He made a friend with a gentleman his name was Abu Bakr. And Abu Bakr was a man who was kind of larger than life. And I mean that literally. He was a bodybuilder. Abu Bakr would compete in bodybuilding things, and he was very outgoing and very charismatic. And him and my dad was the opposite. He was really shy and kind of a bookworm kind of guy. And Abu Bakr and my dad somehow, I guess opposites attract. They became BFFs. They did everything together. They were best friends in college. They were seen all over the place. They were really good friends. And Abu Bakr was going to study to be an engineer. He wanted to do engineering, and so that was his focus. My father was interested in more either medicine or veterinary medicine. He wasn't quite sure which way he wanted to go with that. And so Abu Bakr was an interesting guy because his uncle, Abu Bakr's uncle, also worked at the university. And Abu Bakr's uncle had a really specific job. His job was to help students at the university who wanted to study abroad be able to study abroad. So he had connections all over the world to be able to get Indian students abroad to study in other places. And probably at this time, we're talking like the late 50s, early 60s. The main place that people wanted to go was the United States. That's where people wanted to go to study, to get out and explore the world and do things. And so naturally, when Abu Bakr went to graduate, he wanted to study engineering and that. And so he used his uncle's services and he got himself into graduate school at the University of Michigan. Right? So he went from India over to Michigan. My father, on the other hand, went into veterinary medicine and became a vet, and he stayed in Bombay. And after Abu Bakr left, my father was still kind of in the neighborhood where they had gone to school, and all the people on campus would always ask him, hey, whatever happened to that guy, Abu Bakr? You guys were such great friends. And they kind of lost communication. They didn't get to talk very much. So they didn't really talk to each other really much at all. But he still talked to his uncle, the one who worked on campus, and they kind of kept touch kind of remotely. Well, one day, my father gets a letter in the mail. He gets a letter in the mail from Abu Bakr from the University of Michigan. And Abu Bakr sends him a letter, and he reads the letter, and he says, hey, how's everything going? The normal formalities that open a letter. And then he gets to the heart of why he's writing the letter. He said, in our yearbook, there was that photo of me in that bodybuilding pose when I won that competition. I wanted to show somebody that photograph, but I don't have a copy of it. Could you please could you please mail me a copy of that photo from our yearbook? I'd really appreciate it. Sincerely, Abu Bakr, or whatever. P.S. Right, so this is important. P.S. The University of Michigan has an opening in the biochemistry department for a fellow. Maybe you should apply. That's it, right? My dad was already out. He was a practicing vet. He was, doing well for himself. So he went and he dug up the yearbook. He found the photo that he was talking about, cut it out, and then he was like, wait a minute. This is like 1960s, right? So airmail we couldn't email it, right? You had to physically send it in the mail to the United States. So that's not cheap, right? So he said, I don't want to mail this thing. That's going to cost way too much money. I know. I'll give it to his uncle, and I'll make his uncle mail it to him, right? So he goes and he brings the photograph to Abu Bakr's uncle, and he says, hey, he wrote me this letter. He wants me to send him this picture. Here's the picture. Why don't you mail him the picture? And his uncle looks at the letter and he says, did you read this part at the bottom? He said, yeah, about that. I'm a vet. I'm doing well. He says, I remember you. You were best friends with my son, my nephew, when you were here. You had better grades than he did. Why don't you go to the United States? And my dad's like, I'm here. I'm already doing my thing. I'm a vet. I'm enjoying what I do. He says, no. You should go to the United States. You should go study with Abu Bakr. You were smarter than he was. You're the smarter one of the two of you. And he's over there. You should be over there. And my dad was like, I don't know. Okay. So without telling my dad really, he was just kind of like, well, let me see your grades. So he got a copy of his transcripts. His uncle got a copy of my dad's transcripts. And on my dad's behalf, he mailed his transcripts and a letter to the University of Michigan, applying for the position in biochemistry. And my dad gets a rejection letter from the University of Michigan, randomly. He's like, what? So he goes back to his uncle. He's like, what did you do? He's like, I sent your application to the University of Michigan. I figure you're a smart guy. You should be able to get it. And he was like, okay. So that's weird. I didn't really want to do that, but all right. And then the next day he gets a rejection from the University of Pittsburgh and a rejection from the University of Nebraska. And then the one day he gets an acceptance letter into the Department of Biochemistry at Oklahoma State University in Oklahoma, Stillwater campus. And now he's like, right. So he goes back to his uncle. He's like, I actually got in, So he's like, absolutely, you should go. He's like, yeah, but I don't have any money. I don't really have the resources to up everything and go to the United States. Remember, he comes from a fisherman's village where people are poor, right? Just the fact that he went to college alone is mind-boggling. Now he's going to travel to the United States and get a master's degree in something, that's just completely beyond the pale, right? So my dad is, to me, he's kind of like a saint. He's the guy who would give you the shirt off his back. He has a reputation as being somebody who just, if somebody was coming by, my third cousin, twice removed, is visiting from someplace, and my dad would be the one to drive to pick them up from the airport and bring them back and give them a place to stay and feed them and take them where they need to go. That's just the kind of guy my dad is. And, during the time when he was a vet, during the time that he was a vet in India, when you're a veterinarian in India, you actually get a flat to stay in. Now, space is a premium. In case you haven't noticed, there's a lot of people in India. So to have a place to stay, it's kind of a big deal, right? So he had not only just a place, he had a 3-bedroom flat in the center of Bombay, which is a huge deal, right? So the people from the village would just freeload in the apartment, hey, this is awesome. It's imagine somebody with a studio in Manhattan, right? You just crash at their place all the time because you could. So one of my father's relatives from Bahrain had a wife and daughter who were really, really sick. This is back when my dad was a vet. And they called the village and they said, they're really sick. They need to come to India. The doctors are better in India. They need medical care. What are we going to do? So the people in the village said, well, go talk to my dad. Talk to Lee. He'll help you out. So this person who my father didn't even know, right? She said, oh yeah, sure, come on in. I'll help you out. So the wife and daughter flew from Bahrain to Bombay. My father picked them up from the airport, put them up in their flat, fed them food, drove them to their doctor's appointments. It was like, like a mini Mayo Clinic. Like they drove them from appointment to appointment, got them the care that they needed, actually waited around to talk to the doctors because he was a vet, so he had some medical knowledge. So he would talk to the people and try to translate the medicalese into English or Hindi for the people. And so he really helped them out and helped them get better. And then eventually they flew back, and that was maybe 2 or 3 years prior. And this guy, Abu Bakr's uncle, talked to my dad, and he said, don't you know anybody? You must know somebody who could help you out. My dad wasn't really somebody to ask for help, but he said, you know what? I did help those people in Bahrain. Why don't I give them a call and see if they might be willing to help out? So he cold calls this guy in Bahrain who he managed to help out, his wife and daughter. And the man broke down into tears, and the man on the phone, and he said, take whatever you need. You helped my family in the greatest time of need. This is my repayment to you. Take as much money as you need. And he airmailed my father a blank check and said, whatever you need for your education, take it, go, be prosperous. And that's how my father ended up in the United States. From a cold call to Bahrain and a PS on a letter. That's how my father ended up in the United States, leaving the village, coming over here to the United States. And so the title of this talk, what I want to get across in this point, the title of this talk is Serendipity. And more importantly than serendipity, it's that you don't always know where the help is going to come from. All right? And so when you get in life, people have goodwill and they want to help you out. But you don't necessarily know who's going to be your friend and who's going to be your enemy. The people you least suspect might be there to help you out. But you have to be, number one, willing to ask. Number two, you have to be willing to see the opportunity for what it is and seize it when it arrives. Right? So that's obviously going to play an important role going forward when we talk about myself and what I'm going to do and why I'm leaving this university. But we're going to fast forward to person two. Now the rest of them go a lot faster. That's obviously, my dad was like the most important one. The second story I want to tell you about. The second story is a story of just a miraculous woman. Her name was KP. Her name was Janice Kuchar-Patnaud. That's her full name, but nobody could ever pronounce that, so she would just say, call me KP. She was the music director, the choir director at my high school. And some of you know this already, so I'm not treading on unfamiliar ground to some of you. But when I was a kid, I'm my father's son, I was incredibly shy. When I did the Myers-Briggs, I came out as -30 on the introvert-extrovert scale. So -30 is like as introverted as you can get. I still am today, actually. So I am like painfully shy, introvert, completely my shell. And if you've been in my office, you've seen the picture of me in middle school. It's not a pretty picture. Kind of look like the Unabomber. Big glasses, braces, hoodie. Not a good picture. So that was a time in my life, I mean, I was very much in my shell and didn't really associate very much with the outside world. And when I got into high school, I could sing a little bit, and so somebody convinced me that, hey, you should join the choir, and you should try out for shows and stuff, and try it. My brother had done, orchestral work. He had worked in the pit, and I thought that might be a good idea. So I tried out for the show, and the thing about KP is, like, she's one of those people who's like larger than life. I mean, she's a high school drama teacher. You can imagine, larger than life. People loved her. People remembered her. People went on from our high school to go on to Broadway and were on like big time. Hugely inspirational person. Just across the board, magnificent, inspiring leader. All the superlatives I could bestow upon a person. And she is, during the drama work, a lot of it is about facing your fears and overcoming yourself. And KP was a person who would tell you that it's an extrovert's world, right? So that was her thing. She's like, if you're shy, you can be shy all you want, but it's an extrovert's world. You have to learn how to turn the introvert in you off and let yourself be extroverted when you have to be, because there's times in life when you just have to be an extrovert, right? If you have to get a point across, if you need something done, you have to be able to get over yourself and put yourself out there. And so through my work with her and through the work through theater, I've really learned how to come out of my shell, to be a public speaker, to deliver material in a way that's concise and to the point. Because a lot of the drama exercises are about whittling emotions and concepts down into words that make sense to people. So to be able to convey emotions and ideas, right? Those are all things that come from drama, all right? Being able to convey words, convey ideas and concepts in words that are understandable by another person. And so really, I learned to be an educator through those high school days, not even knowing that that's what I was learning how to do, right? And I mean, I'm not going to say I was excellent, but I was okay at singing. I was a decent singer. Maybe a little bit less so in drama part, but I thought I could sing. And when I was a senior in high school, I was kind of faced with a dilemma. I was like, I really like biology and I like the science stuff. Maybe I could do medicine. That might be cool. But I really love music and I love the arts and I love drama, and that drama's helped me so much. It's like, maybe I want to do drama, right? Maybe I want to go and go to Tisch and be an actor or something. Maybe I could do this. So I sat down. I sat down with KP. I'll never forget it. She pulled me in. I asked to ask her about something. We sat down in her office, and we sat across from each other. And she said, "What can I? What's up? What can I help you with?" I said, I'm really struggling here. I think I may want to do medicine, but I love the arts so much, and I think I might want to do drama or music. Maybe I want to do that for a career. What should I do? And the next words out of her mouth were mind-blowing. So she said, "Are you kidding? That's an easy decision." She said, "The whole point of music is to heal people. And if you can heal people directly through medicine, why wouldn't you take that avenue?" And those words stuck with me to this day. So she was the one who planted that idea that the point of music, and she was really referring to the arts in general, the music, the arts. The point of music, the point of the arts is to heal people. Why people who do music do it to heal themselves or to heal other people through their music. And so if you have the opportunity to help people directly by being a physician, then that's obviously the superior track. She said, and music will always be a part of your life. So the second part of that sentence. She's like, music will always be a part of your life. Nobody can take that from you. But to be able to have that much profound impact on people's lives, you should go into medicine. And so that's the day that I decided that I'm going to apply to medical school and over the arts. And it was my art teacher who told me to go into medicine. So not at all the way that I thought things were going to pan out. So that's person number 2. Person number 3 is Dr. Dave Mason, who I will briefly introduce. Dr. David Mason was the chairman of the OMM department here before Dr. Chanel. He was here for about 10 years. He taught first and second year, really second year OMM when I was a student here. And so he's the one who is he's like my osteopathic dad. You know what I mean? You always have the people who are sort of directly influence you. So all of you are like my kids in some respect. Your Dr. Surve's, I'm like your dad in OMM terms. And Dr. Mason would be like your grandfather because he taught me. So he's like your osteopathic grandfather that you don't even know. He's like your wily uncle that you don't know. And so Dr. Mason, he was just an excellent leader. He was an excellent teacher. Taught me pretty much everything I know about OMM, and was really inspiring for me. And so he sort of cultivated my skills. He gave me the opportunities while I was here at SOM to be. I got elected as chair, as a president of the SAO, then UAAO, now SAO. I was chapter president for that. He encouraged me to go run for national office, so I went and ran for national office. And was able to achieve quite a lot when we needed to run. We tried to create a prototype for what is now the undergraduate clinic, the Synapse OMM clinic. We had one of those. I started it, or at least I helped start it, me and this other guy, Matt Gillis. We helped to do it. I was administrator for that clinic. It was running. And then after I left, it sort of fizzled out. And now what you guys have is like way better than what we had put together. And so he really nurtured me through my career. And then I graduated and I left and went to do my internship. But we never lost touch. And Dr. Mason comes back into the picture like later on. So we'll cut off that story for now and move on to person 4 on the list. So there's a dark secret I carry around that I don't really share with too many people, but we're going to share it tonight because it's my anniversary, and here we are. So when I was applying for residency, I didn't match. I didn't match the first go around. Not many people know that. I applied for internships and I applied for PM&R for residencies. I applied to many programs around this area and followed some bad advice, let's put it that way, and ended up not matching initially. I matched for my internship. I matched at Crozier for my internship, but I didn't match for residency. And when that happened, like walls came crashing down. I mean, that was like the worst day of my life. The day that I found out that I wasn't going to match for PM&R. And if for anyone who's participated in the scramble process or whoever will participate in the scramble process, it is not a fun process. There's no two ways about it. There's nothing fun about scrambling. And at the time, I had applied to all allopathic PM&R programs. And I was kind of like, there wasn't a lot of room because PM&R was a field that filled 95+%. So there was only like 10 spots in the nation left for everybody who was scrambling. And so finally it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. There's an osteopathic program in Michigan. Why am I not applying to the osteopathic program to see if they have availability? So I called the program director, Dr. Mike Whiting, who turns out now is a really good friend of mine. And he said, send me your resume, send me your CV. I sent him all my stuff, sent him my scores and everything. He's like, you're a great applicant. What happened? I said, I know, like, don't, bad advice. He was like, all right, whatever. So he said, well, we don't have any spots now, but once July comes around, inevitably somebody leaves, somebody goes on leave, somebody decides they don't want to do this anymore. So call me back in July, and if we have a spot, I'll take you sight unseen. All right? So I was like, all right, good, there's hope, right? So I'm now in my internship. I just started my internship. Call him back. He's like, nope, no spots. Call me again in August. Now, the way I found his number, I could never remember his phone number. So I would just go on the AOA Opportunities website, and I would just search osteopathic PM&R, and that's the only one that came up. So it was like real easy, right? There you go. There's his number, and I'd call him. So August comes around. I go to call him. I'm like, what was his number again? So I look up on the osteopathic, on the opportunities page, osteopathic PM&R, and boom, 3 programs come up. Not 1, 3. I was like, 3? Where did these come from? The other 2 are in New York. And I was like ready to move to Michigan. I'm from North Jersey. I was like, I'm ready to move to Michigan for this. Like, New York is a total win, right? So I'm like, what's this about? So I called the one program director, Dr. Rebecca Fishman. She's the 4th person that I'm going to talk about today. And she says, oh yeah, we're a brand new program. We just got accredited. We need somebody who's really good at OMM, who could really help us get this program off the ground and really blaze a trail and help us build this program from the inside out. And I said, boy, you have the right person. Let me show you my CV and show you what I've done. And she said, but I have one condition. And I said, what's that? She's like, are you a musician? And I said, well, what does that have to do with anything? So Rebecca Fishman is a program director, but she was a professional dancer and professional singer through high school and college. She actually worked with a band that does a production company that does like wedding, but not like the wedding singer weddings, like like when the president gets married, like, like their wedding party, like these guys do them. And so she sang and danced professionally with them for many years, many years. And then got injured as a dancer, had to hang up her dancing career, and decided to go into medicine. So she became a doctor, a rehab doctor, so she could help other people who had gotten injured. And so she now is, a rehab doctor. And she said, "Are you a singer? Do you do anything? Do you do anything in the arts?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a singer. I actually do have a background in music. I played trumpet for many years. I'm a singer." She says, "Okay, well then you're good, right? We're square." She says, "My one condition is we need to sing together on your graduation day." That's what she told me. And we did. We sang a duet on our graduation day from residency. So a random look on the Opportunities website to find a phone number is how I ended up in Osteopathic PM&R as a residency. Again, serendipity, right? You don't know where the help is going to come from. Rebecca Fishman, program director at Long Beach, which is now Mercy Medical Center. Her mentor, so if she's my mom, my maternal grandfather on that end, was a doctor named Richard Backrack. Richard Backrack is the fifth person on the list that I'm going to talk to you about. So Richard Backrack was a doctor who graduated from PCO. Back then it was PCO, the Philadelphia College. Set up shop in New York, Midtown Manhattan, and had a performing arts practice where he took care of musicians and dancers for 50 years in New York. So by the time I had met him, he was in his upper 70s already. And he was a gentleman who had been there, done that, seen everything there is to see, know everything there is to know, just looked at people and knew what their problem was. Unbelievable. And his knowledge, his medical knowledge, was only rivaled by his disagreeableness and cantankerousness with anybody who didn't know as much as he did, which is pretty much everybody. So he was not an easy person to work with by many accounts. I mean, loved his patients, everything for the patients. But when it came to students, when it came to residents, when it came to attendings, when it came to anybody else that we had to deal with, not so much. And so because of that, he really didn't have too many students rotate with him for obvious reasons. He was getting older. He was up in his upper 70s. And he said, I need somebody to really help me with my practice. So he went to call one of his former patients. One of his former patients who was a young, pretty dancer and singer until she got hurt and had to go to medical school and start a residency. He called Rebecca Fishman and said, "I need somebody to help me with my practice. I'm getting older. I need somebody who can learn from me. But it needs to be somebody good. It needs to be somebody who's really good at OMM." So Dr. Fishman looked at me and said, "How'd you like to work in the city?" I said, "What are you talking about? How'd you like to work in the city? One of my mentors is looking for some help in the city." I said, "Okay." She didn't tell me the other part. She was just like, "Yeah, go work. It'll be great." Okay. I went to work for Richard Backrack for 3 years while I was in the city. And those are the hardest, most painful, time-consuming, but hands down, most rewarding years of my life to date. That environment, working with him, we hit it off wonderfully. I mean, I don't know why other people have problems with him. It's like we were meant to be. I mean, just great friends. He taught me a whole lot. I can't say everything he knows because I know he knew a lot more than I ever will about performing arts medicine, but taught me a lot about how to take care of performers, how to take care of musicians. And while I was there and I was learning and figuring all this out and getting really, really good at OMM from doing a lot of this, doing acupuncture, doing other things, I get a phone call, cold call, from none other than Who? Dr. David Mason, all right? We have an opening in our faculty. We need somebody to come teach. Will you come teach OMM? I remember you when you were a student. You were really good. You ran the clinic for us. You should come and teach. And so here I am at a crossroads between my present life and my former life. Right? And I really didn't want to give up the performing arts thing because I really loved it. I mean, every piece of that, the patients, the facility, the practice, the medicine, every piece of it, loved it. But then the other part of it was the gratitude, because I am who I am because of people like Dr. Mason, because of people like Dr. Fishman, people who gave back, who invested in me, who cultivated my skills, who pushed me to the next level. And so I felt that it was my duty to give back, to come back and teach. So I left New York. I left that practice to come here to teach you. And best decision I ever made, hands down, all right? Not even a question. Best decision I ever made. Being able to teach you guys has been just one of the greatest joys, far better than anything that I was doing in New York. To see you guys every day, to see your skill, to see you come from a place, think about where you were when you started your first day of medical school, and you had palpation lab. And you're like, where? Here? What am I palpating? And look at where you come. Like, look where you've come now. Your ability to palpate now. That's my joy. That's what I love to see. And so, in the interim, while I'm teaching you guys, Dr. Mason left to go to Texas to take up the chairmanship down at the Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine. And I'm doing my thing. I'm teaching, and obviously it was sad to lose my mentor to Texas. And from almost the day after he left, he'd call me up. So you should come. You should come to Texas. You should come. Like, dude, I'm not moving to Texas. Like, I'm not doing it. It's hot. Like, I'm just not doing it. So finally, he kind of gave up after a while. He was like, I'm done with that. A couple of months back, I get a phone call, cold call. Who's on the phone? Dr. David Mason. Dr. Mason says, Saj, you're not going to believe this. I said, what are you talking about? Said, you're not going to believe this. TCOM, which is the Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine, TCOM is trying to expand their service lines. We see the patients we see. They're trying to expand into different avenues to find new lines of patients to see. And one of the opportunities that we've identified as a way to expand our service line is to create a service line for the treatment of performing artists. We're going to create a service line where we treat dancers, we treat musicians who are injured, because there's many of them here. The Fort Worth Ballet is has already signed on. They want us to help them, and they need help. The ballerinas are all getting hurt, and they need somebody to take care of them. And the problem is, we know that this is what we want to do, but the administrators at TCOM don't know who we can get to run a center of this nature, because nobody here has the right performing arts experience to be able to run a center of that nature and be able to pull all those pieces together. So I thought of you immediately, and I wanted to give you this phone call to see if you'd be willing to be the director of the Center of Performing Arts Medicine. That's the cold call I got. Minded my own business. And so if you want to talk about inspiration, if you want to talk about following your dreams, if you want to talk about putting the pieces of your life together, to be able to put together education, performing arts, medicine, osteopathy, leadership, teaching medical students. That's what this is. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to Texas, as much as it pains me to leave here, because this represents the culmination of everything that I've ever done in my entire life. It represents the nexus of everything I'm passionate about, rolled up into one opportunity. And so now, here I am, to bring it full circle, in New Jersey, a place I've lived my entire life, about to get on a plane and fly to Fort Worth, Texas. And wouldn't you know, less than 100 miles from Fort Worth, Texas, is Stillwater, Oklahoma, where my father landed 50 years ago. So I hope you understand a little bit more about me. I hope you understand a little bit more about my journey and why I'm leaving you, as much as it pains me to leave you. All I would ask is, wherever inspiration takes you, wherever the help comes from, grab a hold of it. Grab a hold of it and run, because this is just amazing. You won't believe what life has in store for you if you're willing to open your eyes and look around and see what's available. So thank you.